Joining me now, I have the founder of the National Security Institute at George Mason University, Jamil Jaffer. Jamil, good morning to you. What an insane story. I mean, just as someone who has dedicated his career to national security, when this story first broke, your first thought was what?
I mean, Markie, I was like, what are you talking about? This is crazy that you'd be having a conversation on Signal with the most senior officials of the U.S. government, cabinet officials, talking about an ongoing effort against terrorists overseas.
And tell me this too, Jamil. I mean, if not over text thread, you've got to make big, decisions about war, about bombing targets. If not over Signal, how was this supposed to be handled? Email, you throw up a bat signal and get everybody in the same room. I mean, how's this supposed to go down?
No, that's exactly it, Markie. I mean, historically, you'd go into a sensitive compartmented information facility. You'd all get together at the White House Situation Room. You'd have a conversation, then you go out to your agencies and do the work. At the same time, each of these officials has their own skiff in their home, so they can use that as well. But the truth is, Markie, look, when ongoing things are happening and ongoing conflicts are happening, the reality is people oftentimes get on their private cell phones, their work cell phones, and are talking in an unclassified manner. They're talking around classified information. That's not the right way to do it, but it happens all the time. This is when security rules get too hard. People create workarounds. People are creative. Signal, probably one of the safest workarounds because it's an encrypted messaging app, but still not the right way to do these things and a challenge. Now, look, the one thing you might say, Markie, and you haven't heard this from the administration yet, but it might be coming, the president could have very well have authorized them to use this capability to have conversations. He can do that when it comes to classified information. This is the president who, if you recall in his first administration, took a photograph of a highly classified picture, declassified it, put it out on X. So possible that happened. We haven't heard that defense yet from the White House.
Yeah, we'll see what more comes from the White House today. Let me play some sound for you. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just full on blasting this report, Jamil.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, so Hegseth was pretty firm that they were not sharing war plans. He's denying this, but the National Security Council says the text chain appears to be authentic. What kind of consequences could these high-level officials face here?
Well, look, certainly the president could fire any one of them. It looks like, though, the president doesn't appear inclined to do that. You saw him yesterday essentially saying, I don't know what you're talking about, which, of course, is hard to believe because if your national security officials are in a major newspaper report talking about how they had another reporter on the thread talking about these sensitive operations, whether it's war plans or not, and whether Jeffrey Goldberg is deceitful or viewed as such by the Secretary of Defense doesn't really matter. The report is accurate. It is what happened. There's no question this is not some story being peddled. It's the truth. Now, the question of whether it's war plans or operational details, if you're disclosing information about the ongoing military operation, that could be damaging if it gets out. In this case, obviously, the leak was inadvertent, but it happened. So, I don't think anybody's going to be prosecuted for this. The reality is that this wasn't an intentional or willful disclosure of classified information. At the same time, somebody could get fired, but this administration, we'll see.
And the other big question before I let you go, I imagine that, countries like Russia, China, Iran are just salivating, over this headline. Does this give them any sort of advantage, and other adversaries to take advantage of us and pounce in any sort of way at this moment?
Well, look, obviously, we've heard terrible things about how our phone system is completely, essentially compromised by the Chinese and these Salt Typhoon attacks that happened during the last administration. Now, this administration has a concern because if they're using Signal and continue to use it going forward, you've now given the adversary a target to point at. Now, Signal is going to be hard to get into. It's got encrypted messaging end to end. That's a good thing. That being said, if you're now focused on one particular target, then you can put a lot of effort into it. You know now that all the senior cabinet officials, I mean, nobody complained, by the way, Markie. Nobody was on this thread. You have the CIA director, the director of national intelligence, secretary of state, all talking. Nobody's saying, hey, by the way, should we be doing this in a skiff? So now you've got a target to point at, although it's likely that given what just happened, they're going to move off this platform. What really needs to happen, though, here, Markie, the government needs to have a classified messaging app that all these folks can use. The reality is these things happen. You're on the run. You're moving. You're not always near a skiff. They've got to find a way to work this out. Signal is not the right answer. It demonstrates the government needs to do better with technology. That's got to happen here, too.
Yeah, the VP reportedly on there as well, and people passing emojis back and forth over this. We're going to follow this investigation every step of the way, but Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much, as always, for joining me on the show.
Thanks, Markie.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.